The Exorcist Believer is the latest entry in the Exorcist IP, the Exorcist series. It is a legacy sequel to the original and maybe even 2 and 3. I personally really love 3 and 1. I really don't like The Exorcist 2, but The Exorcist Believer comes to us from director David Gordon Green, who did the recent Halloween trilogy with Blumhouse, and it also features Ellen Burstyn and Leslie Odom Jr. When his daughter Angela and her friend Katherine show signs of demonic possession, it unleashes a chain of events that forces single father Victor Fielding to confront the nadir of evil. Terrified and desperate, he seeks out Chris MacNeil, the only person alive who's witnessed anything like it before. Or so what the plot kind of wants you to believe, if I'm being 100% honest. But guys, before I get into my review of The Exorcist Believer, what do you think about it? I want to see what you all have to say down in the comment section below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you somewhere right in the middle? Or are you looking forward to it? Please comment down below. Let me know. Now, I'm going to be upfront. I'm not the biggest fan of the Exorcist movies, but at the same time, I have an appreciation for the original, which is still a movie I really, really enjoy. I actually got to see it in theaters a few years ago as my first ever subjection to the series. Not only that, I really, really love The Exorcist 3. I actually think it's better than the original, in my opinion. Exorcist 2, that can stay in a corner on its own, if I'm being 100% honest, but it's not like I hate these movies. I just can't say I'm the biggest fan of them, but I do enjoy the first and the third one. There are apparently 2 other movies or something from like the late 90s or early 2000s that happened. I don't know if they're connected to the originals by any means at all. I've never seen them, but apparently they're sort of involved, I think. I don't know. Correct me in the comment section if I am, in fact, wrong. But I went into this movie with a lot of skepticism behind me because I really didn't think the marketing for this movie was too impressive, but at the same time, it laid an interesting concept and foundation out in front of us as the viewer. It's a concept that we've seen before, but depending on how it was handled and executed, I was excited nonetheless, even though the marketing wasn't anything, in my opinion, overly special or to write home about, if that makes sense. And I will say, I'm someone who defends David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy for the most part. I really love the 2018 movie. I think Halloween Kills is completely underrated in my opinion. I actually think it's a really damn fun movie. It's a good Michael Myers movie, but it's not a great movie as a whole, but it's still entertaining and fun to watch. And it feels like a classic 80s, 70s slasher. And then you've got Halloween Ends, which even though I really don't like that movie, I appreciate the new and unique direction that kind of sort of went in the way of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, but at the same time, not at all with the whole Corey Cunningham stuff. And how Michael was basically absent for the entire movie. I appreciate his ingenuity and also his boldness. And that does carry over a little bit here with a concept we have seen before, but he at least attempts to do something different with it. Not to mention as well, David Gordon Green as a director I think is very talented, especially when it comes to framing the camera, how it moves, and also how he sets scenes out. The problem, in my opinion, is not within the directing. The problem with The Exorcist Believer does come down to the writing, the editing, the sound design, and the very bland score. If I was to sum up The Exorcist Believer in one way, I would say boring and painfully average. Because from the very beginning of the movie, like the first 30 minutes, I was bored out of my fucking mind, like nothing of interest was going on. There are things where the foundation is there to be interesting, but unfortunately it never does anything aside from the first 10 minutes of the movie to really develop upon its characters whatsoever. The opening scene of the movie also feels like a completely different movie altogether, which is a big problem. There is a way if they develop this family dynamic between Leslie Odom Jr. and the young actress who plays Angela, who by the way is phenomenal in this movie. Lydia Jewett does a great job as young Angela. She is phenomenal. I didn't believe for a second she was 13 years old, because she does look older than the 13-year-old girl who is going through all this fucking crap, not to mention acts way older than a 13-year-old does. But at the same time, I think that Lydia Jewett does a really good job for the most part with what she has provided, and I have to say that about the entire cast. Leslie Odom Jr. in particular really fucking tries in this movie, and he and the entire cast, as a matter of fact, are a standout, aside from Katherine's parents, who are sort of like, there are 2 dynamics in this movie, because there are 2 girls that are being possessed, Katherine and Angela. You have Leslie Odom Jr., who's really trying to get to the bottom of this, is a caring father and everything. He's a single father. His daughter is the only thing he really fucking has. But at the same time, the other family, Katherine's family, is really fucking corny. They sort of feel like really generic B-plot fucking horror villains at times, because they are nothing but assholes this entire fucking movie, from the moment we meet them to the very end. Like, our first introduction to them is them honking the horn like an impatient prick at a fucking stoplight in a school parking lot, swearing and saying, "Get the fuck out of the way," to his daughter's friend's father. Like, Really, my guy? And when everything hits the fan, I understand as parents, you're stressed, you're anxious, your daughters are missing, but there's no need to take it out on other fucking people, especially when Leslie Odom Jr. is thinking about this logically. And I guess this would have worked fine. Unfortunately, though, they never do anything to build up these dynamics to explore why these people are the way they are. They never explore why they act this way. They never explore any of these things that make characters interesting, especially in the first 30 minutes, to build up dynamic, to build up suspense, tension, and atmosphere for later in the movie when shit hits the fan. We don't give a flying fuck because these imperative aspects are never explored. For that, it's like, hey, here's a scary moment with a jump scare or a really obnoxious jump cut. Here's a really fucking obnoxious sound fucking cue where it's just constantly out of fucking nowhere. It has no tension and no atmosphere, nor is the story even remotely interesting because it never develops upon it. It is incredibly bland and boring because nothing is ever explored or developed upon, and therefore it never actually proves its need to exist. Like, this movie has no need to exist. No movie has a need to exist, as a matter of fact. But at least other movies prove their means to be there for us to have fun and enjoy it among just a slight thrill every 10 fucking minutes. This movie's almost 2 fucking hours long, and it feels way longer because nothing is remotely interesting. The script in this movie is appalling. I mean, it is all over the place, from dialogue to scenes and how they are fucking, placed. It's not just a script issue, but it's also an editing issue, like the placement of scenes and the arrangement of where they take place and the order of which they progress make no sense. There are certain scenes that just happen and then they're over in an instant, where you're like, did that scene even need to fucking be there? My earliest example of this is a scene where you have the girls, they get in trouble at school for talking in class. The teacher has a go at them. Next thing you know, Leslie Odom Jr., he's at his job for like 30 fucking seconds. Then it's gone, and they're back at school. 30 seconds. It feels so weirdly interwoven within the narrative and within the placement and the arrangement of the scenes that take place one after another. The editing in this movie isn't just around to the arrangement of how scenes flow and take place, because the flow is not there at all, but it's also down to the fact that interwoven into the movie are these random cuts and fucking edits of jump scares and all that sort of crap. I understand that what they're going for, but you need to build tension. You need to build atmosphere around those scares. As I said, this movie has some good aspects, and the third act, for a matter of fact, even though the exorcism is boring, like, the third act is fine, but the exorcism itself is really fucking boring. And the movie just sort of never builds to anything aside from a climax which never felt fulfilling. It has so many foundations and so many concepts within that we've seen before, but with a different take and a unique approach, could be fascinating, could be fun, could be interesting, but it never develops upon those foundations or those interesting ideas. David Gordon Green, for the most part, does a fine job as the director, and I think he is talented. He has proven that in the past. But at the same time, him and Pete Sadler can't write, it seems like. I honestly have no interest in seeing the sequels to this when they come out, Exorcist Disbeliever or whatever it was called, and then whatever the fuck the third one's going to be called. From what I heard, they're not even going to theaters. They're going to streaming or some shit. Where paying $400 million for the Exorcist rights, Blumhouse really shot themselves in the fucking foot here, in my opinion. The Exorcist Believer is just painfully mediocre because, I mean, I guess you can sit down and you can watch it if you're willing to be bored and sort of just turn your brain off for an hour and a half to 2 hours, but at the same time, I was struggling to stay awake this entire movie. It's just boring and painfully mediocre with nothing of substance really there whatsoever. I sat here for ages. Like, I saw this movie 2 days ago, and I didn't record my review in advance. The embargo by the time I'm recording this is already fucking lifted, because I wanted to see if there was anything of redeeming quality for me not to give it a negative grade, because I don't like doing that. And with it being the beginning of a new trilogy, I sort of want to support it in a way, but I can't. I logically can't if this is the low effort that is going to be put into this. And I can tell that effort is put into this movie in certain aspects and certain departments. Like, the acting, for example, is good. Like, it's good. Everyone's trying their best with what they have to work with. But unfortunately, everything else just mainly falls fucking flat. Our good run of horror movies for 2023 is officially over. Like, I mean, it's gone. Like, throw the Nun 2 out of the equation, and we've had a really solid year for fucking horror movies. But this just isn't it. Yeah, it's another dud. Yeah, I can't recommend The Exorcist Believer, but I can recommend that you all go check it out for yourself to determine your own opinion. That's all I'll say. But with all that said, I'm going to give The Exorcist Believer a D+. So guys, what do you think of The Exorcist Believer? I want to see what you have to say down in the comment section below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Or are you somewhere right in the middle? Or are you looking forward to it? Please comment down below. Let me know. I'm interested to see what you'll have to say. Look out for more videos coming soon whenever I can get around to it. I've had a very busy week. That's why the spoilers talk for Saw X and the, ranking hasn't come up yet. But they are coming very soon. I promise you guys that. Thank you all so much for watching. Look out for more videos very soon. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.